The idea of the Innovation Campus in Saldanha Bay has been brewing in our minds for years, and our passion to bring it to life remains unwavering. Our dream is that the Saldanha Bay Innovation Campus is a meeting of hearts and of minds, and collectively creating a better future for the local energy and maritime sectors. Our hope is that it evokes a fresh sense of possibility and inspires us to push beyond our perceived boundaries into the art of the impossible.
Welcome to our Innovation Showcase for the Saldanha Bay Innovation Campus. And today we're giving a very warm welcome to Robin Hoogwerf of 34South and the Green Ship Recycling Facility. So we'd like to thank listeners for tuning in and remind you please to like, follow, engage and share with your networks this podcast, which I hope you'll find very, very interesting. So I'm Vanessa Davidson. I've worked in the marine manufacturing sector for over 12 years, primarily through running industry associations and most recently the South African Boat Builders Export Council. I joined Saldanha Bay IDZ to project manage a very exciting project in new port infrastructure in overseeing a cost-benefit analysis. And this port infrastructure is very critical to green ship recycling facilities activation in the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone. And I also work on the marine business development side of things. But today I'm wearing for the first time my SBIDZ Innovation Campus hat. And I would like to warmly welcome you, Robin, and perhaps invite you just to tell the guests a little bit more about yourself.
Thank you, Vanessa. I am a consulting civil and structural engineer by background, and more recently I have involved myself in development projects in the green and renewable energy sector. And the showpiece project at this present time is our green ship recycling facility earmarked for the IDZ in Saldanha Bay.
Super, thanks very much, Robin. And I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion that we have today. So our topic is to celebrate the innovative developments occurring in the local energy and maritime sectors and to look at how they can be applied to other sectors and adjacent industries. So let me ask the question, why? Well, the South Africa and the Western Cape have a significant wealth of knowledge, and the Western Cape in particular is specifically known for having a dynamic and robust innovation ecosystem. And this drives creative and innovative solutions across a range of sectors. And to paraphrase one of our previous guests, which I think is fabulous, is we're developing African solutions for African problems. However, many of these technologies remain unknown to the broader industry and therefore do not reach their full potential within the South African market and other markets. And the Innovation Showcase series is a mechanism for the Innovation Campus to raise awareness of the research, development and innovation occurring locally and to highlight its possible applications and functions. So within that context, we really welcome this engagement with the Green Ship Recycling Facility to understand from an innovation perspective what the facility is all about. And perhaps I could kick off with the first question, Robin, and that is to ask you, what is your definition of innovation?
Innovation refers to something that's new and unique and creates opportunity, both employment and wealth for a particular sector or area.
Great, that's super. And within that definition of innovation for yourself as the Green Ship Recycling Facility, what does green ship recycling actually entail? I think it's probably not a concept that's well known broadly. If you could just give us a little bit more information.
Largely in Southeast Asia, where unacceptable labour and environmental practices are undertaken. And this has created a lot of attention for that industry to such an extent that various conventions have been held to address the issues. The one that is driving us is something called the European Union Regulations for Green Ship Recycling, whereby any ship that is flagged in a European Union country must be recycled at an accredited facility at its end of life. And there are insufficient facilities around the world that are accredited. So we have taken this opportunity to develop a green ship recycling facility in Saldanha Bay, which will be the first in Africa.
So Robin, you're saying, these conventions were developed because of the environmentally unfriendly methods practiced in Southeast Asia. So what is it specifically that you'll be doing differently from an environmental perspective? I think there's a misconception that ship recycling is totally destructive of the environment. And it's hazardous for the laborers, that it pollutes the local environment. It's a highly laborious process. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so we'll be following the European Union regulations, which essentially is a watchdog or checklist of any item that comes into our facility from a monitoring and recording point of view. And that will include obviously the vessel, but together with its what is known as the green passport, which records every single item of material and equipment on that vessel, which must be accounted for through the process, from recycling right through to waste disposal. Now, our facility is actually situated inland, and we will be lifting vessels out of the water and transferring them to our facility, which will have a hard stand and will manage the runoff on that area, so that any potential waste will be captured and processed. The processing of the waste will take place off-site, so our facility will be environmentally compliant and friendly.
Okay, and there are a lot of components that need to come off a ship. I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head, from the cabins that are on the ship to all the satellite communication systems, even down to a galley that has to be dismantled. It sounds like it's a fairly complex process, is it?
Yes, it is. It will require certain specialized items of equipment and cutting equipment and handling equipment in order to make it an efficient business. You refer to other items other than the core material, which is the scrap metal, which will be cut up and sold either locally or exported. But very exciting is the fact that there are a number of other non-ferrous metals and also items of equipment which can be refurbished and resold. And this in turn creates a secondary level of business which will be very attractive to SMMEs in the area and other local businesses.
Okay, that's very interesting. I think that when thinks environmentally, I mean, you're talking about recycling scrap steel and then also recycling equipment as well. So there's another dynamic within the industry. And we've also seen with COVID a massive decrease in the activity for cruise ship industry. So that was a $150 billion net worth industry that was very heavily impacted. And I think as many as 21 cruise liners have been decommissioned. I recently watched a YouTube clip of the cruise ships being dismantled in Turkey, and it is quite an undertaking. And I just wondered what kind of demand you're foreseeing in terms of the type of ships that you'll be breaking or dismantling in Saldanha Bay.
I think the cruise liners that you refer to are very complex projects. It's almost like comparing dismantling an open warehouse to a high-rise block of flats. But on the positive side, the cruise liners have a wealth of secondary equipment on board in terms of furniture and electronic goods and other things that are needed for the luxury vessels. In our case, we are aiming more at the bulk carriers or the Panamax type vessel, which contains more scrap metal as the product as opposed to equipment and other items.
Okay, and would you be capable of breaking down an offshore oil rig? Oil and gas is one of the mandates of the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone.
I think the skills that we will be developing can be matched to dismantling an oil rig, although it must be pointed out that it will not be lifted and transferred to the site due to its shape and size. But certainly there will be systems and skills in place that can start that dismantling quayside or anchored in the bay.
I think it'll be interesting as we see energy transitions taking place, whether that actually is something that remains in the market. Perhaps moving on to another question is what do you think can be achieved through establishing the green ship recycling facility in Saldanha Bay?
The first thing that comes to mind is employment. And we have engaged with various local organizations and have discussed the possibility and the probability of training, skills transfer and employment. For example, during the construction phase, we expect there to be at least 1,000 jobs, if not more, for the period of construction, which is estimated to be just over 2 years. And then there will be sustainable full-time employment at the facility of probably upwards of 300 jobs, which excludes what I referred to earlier as the SMME opportunities.
Okay, the SMME opportunities sound very, very exciting. And I imagine that the process of dismantling the ship is very labor intensive. I mean, are there higher level skills that are needed in the process of dismantling a ship?
There will be skilled artisans required, and we have allocated a budget to actually create a training facility, and that extends upwards to a whole range of skills, including contract management, including waste handling, including ship surveys, including managing the logistics of moving the material. So yes, there will be a whole range of skills required.
And other than the job creation, training and skills development that will obviously create a benefit for the Saldanha Bay community, do you foresee any other, and the economic benefit, of course, do you foresee any other benefits that it could accrue to the Saldanha Bay community and broader region?
I think so. You know, the product that will be produced will be sold, so there will be revenue into the area, and also according to company law and tax laws. And also our thinking is actually extending a bit further to something called beneficiation, whereby we're looking at actually using some of that scrap to manufacture something, be it reinforcing bars for construction or something else. So that could bring a whole new level of manufacturing and industry to the area.
Okay, so you're really sort of thinking about that in quite a circular way, perhaps not a full circular economy, but thinking's moving in that direction. Am I right?
Quite right. You know, I think South Africa might have had a tradition of exporting a lot of natural resources to other countries who do something with those resources, manufacture something, and then sell them back to us. We want to contribute in a small way to using some of the scrap locally.
Okay, that's super. And perhaps just for the listeners, how many ships do you anticipate breaking during the course of a year? And you know, what could people expect to see if they came to Saldanha Bay?
Okay, we have carried out very extensive independent research into the supply of vessels. And we're looking at the overflow from facilities in Europe. And we think that we can attract up to 25 vessels per annum of varying size. And that initially would translate to about 30,000 tons per month.
Wow, that's a lot of steel. But that's very exciting. And maybe if you could just give us a little bit more of an idea of how you actually lift these ships out of the water.
We've looked at various systems, and obviously, in order to be environmentally accredited with in line with the European Union regulations. So what we're looking at is to avoid the practice known as beaching, whereby vessels are dragged as close up the beach and to the shoreline as possible in order for the recycling to start. And that is a very unfriendly and unacceptable environmental practice. So what we are going to do is to construct what is known as a ship lift, which is a very large platform with a capacity of up to 18,000 tons, which will lift a vessel out of the water and transfer it on a rail system inland towards our facility, so that there will be no interaction with anything environmentally sensitive, like the sea, water, and also some of the surrounding ground.
Okay, that's good to know. So that the vessel just comes out as it is, and there's nothing removed from the vessel while it's in the water. All of that takes place at your facility. Is that correct?
That's correct. That is the current plan.
And I think this is very exciting. I mean, we said, we're developing African solutions for African problems. Am I correct in assuming that this would be the first African ship recycling facility?
You're quite correct, but let's add the word green to recycling facility. There have been ships dismantled and recycled on much smaller scale, but this will be an accredited green facility.
And I assume that you are then audited by the European Union in terms of following those green practices?
You're quite correct. It's a fairly intensive process. Accreditation will start once our facility has been constructed. In the interim, we are engaging with the representatives from the European Union.
That's fantastic. I think that an African first for green ship recycling really is super. Do you also anticipate possibly dismantling African registered ships?
Our independent research has suggested that the overflow from facilities in Europe is sufficient for us to reach our target's tonnage. However, we have discovered that there's also another market predominantly from West Africa. So our initial investigation, which suggested a commercially viable project is actually quite conservative. And we think that the supply and demand will be a lot higher. That's
very exciting. Very, very exciting. So perhaps to summarize and bring our discussion to a close, I think that having a facility of this nature located in the Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone is very exciting. We're going to have shipbuilders, but we're also going to have green ship recycling alongside that. And the environmentally friendly way in which you're undertaking that work is extremely important, and the job creation and the training and skills opportunity, I think, will really create a great benefit to the Saldanha Bay area. As you said, 1,000 jobs during this construction and then 300 jobs sustained thereafter. And I think it'll also bring a lot of knowledge to the local Saldanha Bay community, and in terms of what a ship is. I mean, I suppose if there's one way to understand a ship is to dismantle it. I often think of how people learn. It's by dismantling and putting things together again. So I think that's a very exciting contribution to the local Saldanha Bay community. And we look forward to seeing 25 Panamax-sized vessels sitting on your ship lift, coming out and being transported back to your facility. So, Robin, I'd like to thank you very much for being on our podcast show today. And just to ask you if you've got any last words before we close.
Thank you, Vanessa. I would like to mention that our partner within 34South is the Industrial Development Corporation. So we are very excited about that. And if there are further questions or interest in our project, we do have a website, which is called 34south.africa. And I think that's it from my side.
Great, super. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Robin. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in again to our Innovation Campus podcast. And just a last reminder to like, share, follow, and engage with the team, you can contact them on innovationcampus@sbidz.co.za. Thank you very much for listening today, and thank you, Robin, and goodbye.
If you have any thoughts or questions on this episode or any ideas for future podcasts, please send us an email at innovationcampus@sbidz.co.za. Until next time, let's innovate the blue.